So Dan Heng Imbibitor Lunae's banner is leaving soon, and he is definitely quite the character that Hoyoverse released. In many popular tier lists such as Priden's, he is ranked S+ in all types of damage content. In single target he's S+, in blast 3 targets he's S+, and pure AoE he's also S+. He is definitely a really strong character and deserves his spot as the best DPS in the game at the moment. Just some quick reasons why he's so strong. By spending 3 skill points, he could potentially have a total of 860 motion value per turn, which is absolutely insane. 500% on a single target with 180 on the 2 sides, plus his skill generates extra energy and has high toughness break. Absolutely insane ability. And on top of that, he has multiple damage buffs already into his own kit. For example, crit damage 12% times 4, and this 10% increased damage up to 6 stacks. And on top of that, even though his light cone is pretty good, it gives him crit rate and some extra stats and stuff, but because he gets so much damage bonus and crit, he actually doesn't have that much attack multipliers. And guess what? This free light cone that everyone can get at rank 5 from the Herder shop gives attack percent. So it just so happens that he has great free-to-play light cones as well. This makes him very accessible to build for free-to-play players or low spenders, giving them the opportunity to have such a strong DPS while being able to build them very well. Now, understandably, his position in the tier list and his raw power and strength in the meta has prompted a lot of discussion about power creep in Honkai Star Rail and what the future looks like. And I wanted to kind of address some of the discussions around Dan Heng, because I think it's pretty interesting to talk about what people are thinking and how the future of the game looks with Dan Heng's release. So one of Imbibitor Lunae's main drawbacks and what people say is how he's balanced, and I assume how miHoYo balanced him, was that he spends 3 SP per turn, so his cost of his strength is his heavy SP usage. The problem with this idea is that I think even Hoyoverse overestimated this flaw. Just with proper team building, for example, 2 supports such as Pella and Tingyun that are very SP positive, and a defensive utility character like Luocha who is very SP positive as well, you have 3 characters that are generating SP for Dan Heng, who also has an ult that gives him 2 free SP. His flaw of potentially consuming 3 SP every time he acts is pretty much nullified by proper team building. In addition, here's a sheet that I found from KQM, credits to them, that mapped out different rotations with different teams and different stats. For example, this the left column has Tingyun with no ER rope. The middle has Tingyun with ER rip, and etc. Now, the mapping looks pretty complicated, but I'm going to simplify my conclusions that I got from this really quickly. So just by looking at the left, because I don't think you should run ER rope on Dan Heng, like, she doesn't need it. When you're running Tingyun with him, which is one of his best supports, you can see that most of the time, you're actually fine with SP. There are only a few points where you reach to 0 SP, but even then, you're perfectly fine. In an actual fight, you don't need to worry about keeping 3 SP at a constant line throughout the entire fight. You can just go down to 2, go down to 1, go down to 0 even, as long as you have enough juice in your DPS to use skill points and are able to clear the fight. In the rightmost column, it has the exact same parameters as the leftmost one, except in the leftmost one, Dan Heng uses 9 3 SP enhanced skills, while in the rightmost one, he only uses 8, while he uses 1 skill that only consumes 1 SP. Now, if we look at the graph, his SP economy is much better. You don't reach 0 until the very end, so you're able to maintain enough SP to do your rotation until, let's just say, turn 7. But once you reach like later turns, the enemy should be dead by then, so that's fine. And we can look at the damage amount. It's only a 6% difference. So even if you are struggling with SP with your team, you can easily just not use a 3 SP enhanced skill. Just use like a normal attack or maybe a 1 SP skill amount, and you're not losing that much damage. So ultimately, his SP flaw isn't that big of a flaw with proper play. Now, the second point I've seen made is that if you calculate Dan Heng's damage per SP, it's very similar to all the other DPSs. Now, here's a quick illustration of, even though that might be correct, it still doesn't matter. So let's just say we have Sealy on top and Imbibitor Lunae on the bottom. Let's just say Sealy uses 3 skills and she does 30k each time. does a total of 90k damage, right? And let's just say Imbibitor Lunae uses one of his 3 SP enhanced skills and does 90k. So looking at the SP cost, if we divide 90k by 3 SP, it's the same. It does 30k damage per SP. The problem here is that Sealy requires 3 actions to actually do this 90k, while Imbibitor Lunae only takes 1. So if we actually compare 3 actions, he actually does 3 times the amount of damage because he's able to spend 3 SP in 1 turn. Now, of course, I'm only using arbitrary numbers here, but this just goes to visualize that even if it is balanced per SP, the problem is that over a set number of actions, which is limited by cycles, he can spend a way more SP compared to other DPSs, which allows him to deal out more damage. Now, another point I've seen being made is that Dan Heng is so strong that he can pretty much clear any content, whether or not there's imaginary weakness or not, which is a strong example of power creep. The thing about this point for me is that pretty much most characters, such as like Kafka Blade, even Jing Yuan, can brute force content that they're not made for, even though if they don't have the matching weakness. This is not a Dan Heng specific issue. This is more of Memory of Chaos not having the strongest DPS check, which allows higher invested units to not require, oh, I need lightning weakness for Kafka in order to clear in time. Which is good, because otherwise you're restricted to using your lightning characters on lightning weak enemies, which is, I don't think it feels that well. Now, it is important to note that because of Dan Heng's multipliers and how strong he is and his free-to-play accessibility, it is true that his ability to brute force other forms of content is easier because he has a lower minimum investment threshold. You don't need to invest in his stats as much as, for example, 4-star Dan Heng if you want to brute force content that they're supposedly not made for. So there's different levels of investment can indicate power creep. Another flaw I've seen people bring up is that because Dan Heng is just a DPS who you build all DPS stats, but he's a destruction character, he has higher aggro, so enemies are more likely to target him, so he's more likely to die. And this is a way of balancing him. Now, you can call me not as understanding, but I don't think this is much of a flaw. To me, if you have proper team building and a proper defensive support, I don't think you should die, especially if you have Luocha. I cannot see a world where a properly built Luocha will let your Dan Heng die even if he gets attacked multiple times because of his higher aggro. Now, I can understand if you don't have Luocha, maybe you're just sticking with Natasha, or maybe you want Lynx or something. I can definitely see that, but yes, DPS are squishy, but we should be evaluating their strength and flaws based on their damage dealing ability. Now, one of the last points I saw was because Dan Heng has so much damage in both single target and AoE, it begs the question, why do we need to pull characters such as Sealy, who specialize in hunt, single target, or erudition characters such as Jing Yuan, who are supposedly good at AoE, when we can just pull destruction units like Dan Heng, Blade, potentially Jing Liu in the future. Since they are a jack of all trades, they can do AoE and single target in good amounts. Why do we need to pull for specialized characters when they can just do the job as effective or even better? Now, for this point, I think it is definitely a problem if we are solely looking at pull value, meta strength, and you're limited in the characters that you want to pull. If I am limited in primos and I want to pull a DPS, why would I pull for a character that specializes in specific content when I can pull, for example, Imbibitor Lunae, who can do both AoE content and single target content just as well? It just makes sense to pull for destruction characters that can do that because it's more efficient for your primogens. Sorry, stellar jades, my bad. So I think it is weird that destruction characters, even though they're supposed to be a jack of all trades, their damage is good enough that they do just as well, if not better, than specialized characters, which is definitely a problem that I think Hoyoverse should address. Now, this is if we're talking about pure strength, pure stellar jade investment, if we're looking at meta. But in my opinion, the best play to play this game is to just pull characters that you think are interesting and then try to make them work as the best as you can. If you're purely pulling for meta reasons, you're just going to be chasing the newest units in the game and you're never going to end. To me, and I think a lot of people can agree, it is much more enjoyable playing the game. Playing with a character that I can connect with, that I like their personality or just like their looks, making them stronger and clearing content with them is much more enjoyable than playing the strongest characters number-wise. And because of that reason, I didn't pull for Dan Heng. I'm trying to save my Stellar Jays for Jing Li, so I can't afford to spend on him. I know he's strong and he's probably very good for my account, but I am not a Dan Heng enjoyer. I would rather play well if I wanted an imaginary DPS. That's just me. So going through all those points, it does convey the idea that Imbibitor Lunae is power creep. And I don't think you can really argue against that because of his raw motion value and his skill, because of his bust, because of his free-to-play accessibility, because he competes and is potentially better than previous limited units. I don't think you can argue against the idea that he is strong, and he is definitely a step above previous characters, which in the strict definition is power creep. The most important question, however, is does this power creep affect the game right now and in the future? And I think if we're talking about right now, his increase in strength doesn't really matter, and at the current moment, we don't need to be worried about power creep. Memory of Chaos can still be cleared with Sealy, Jing Yuan, Kafka Blade, even 4-star characters just fine. There's plenty of time to clear the hardest content such as MOC 10 or even Swarm Disaster. Sure, Dan Heng might have an easier time to clear that content, but in the end, all of those units can clear the content, even if they are low on the tier list. Since everyone can clear right now, I'm not worried about power creep at the moment. What is a reasonable concern, however, is when harder content comes out, when MOC enemies get stronger, can the previous characters still clear? Because if in the far future, it is very hard to clear, for example, MOC 10 with perhaps 4-star characters, 5-star DPS standard characters, and worst case scenario, early limited characters, and we need stronger characters like Dan Heng or stronger DPS characters in the future that are released to clear that content, then we have a serious power creep issue in our hands. Now, do I think that's going to happen? I think MOC is definitely going to get harder with higher health pools of enemies, for instance, but I have enough confidence that I don't think most characters will be barred from clearing the hardest content in the game just because they are an older character. Just because of my experience in Genshin, it's hard for me to see MOC being so hard that, for example, Hu Tao can't clear or Xiao can't clear, Ganyu can't clear. So bringing that example to Star Rail, it's hard for me to see in a far future that, let's just say, Clara DPS can't clear MOC, Sealy can't clear MOC, Jing Yuan can't clear MOC, because they are strong teams. Now, there may be a case to be made for 4-star DPS in Star Rail because all we have really is QQ and Genshin has Shangling, but even then, I hope in the future we can still clear with like Hook or 4-star Dan Heng. Now, I've seen people worry that they may not follow the steps of Genshin, they may follow the steps of Honkai's Impact 3rd, which has Memorial Arena and Abyss, where definitely the more recently released characters are incentivized to be used in order for you to get a high ranking in those endgame content. The thing about that comparison is that in Honkai Impact 3rd, you're competing against real players for a high score and fast time, while in both Genshin and Star Rail's MOC and Spiral Abyss, you're only just competing against the clock to get a clear. So unless we're getting a PvP leaderboards for fastest Abyss clears, I don't think we need to worry about having power creep similar to Honkai Impact 3rd. Now, I wanted to end it off with what my biggest concern with Dan Heng's release is, and that is the community perspective and sentiment of these characters having a higher power level. And what I mean by that is, I know there are certain people out there who will look at a character's power level and compare it to other characters and will say that, oh, you shouldn't pull this character because why do that when you can just pull this character, Dan Heng, who is immediately stronger. A similar idea in this, in let's just say Genshin, is let's just say a DPS unit comes out and he performs, fine. But then the person will argue, well, there really is no reason to pull because we get 4-star Shangling for free and she's one of the best DPS in the games. There's no need to pull. And I feel that because of Dan Heng and Imbibitor Lunae's strength and potentially future characters having a similar strength level in terms of DPS, that there's going to be people out there that say, why do you want to pull for this DPS character when you can just pull Dan Heng? Why did you pull for Jing Yuan, Sealy, Blade Kafka when you can pull for Jing Liu in the future, let's just say? And to me, I don't really like that mentality. I think even if people give, like, for example, Jing Yuan a lot of flack for his DPS strength, I think his teams are perfectly fine. His teams are strong. Seely's teams are strong. Blade's teams are strong. Kafka's teams are strong. Let people play which teams that they like. We don't all need to chase the best DPS in the game. It's gonna change. I just want people to enjoy playing the game with the characters that they like. So if they like Jing Yuan, 4-star Dan Heng, Su Shang, Qing Tre, just let them play the game. I guarantee you that those teams with those characters I mentioned are perfectly fine. You can have fun with those teams. They can clear their content. You don't need to compare to a stronger DPS. There's no need to chase numbers unless you really enjoy the idea of chasing numbers. But in my opinion, I don't think most people are like that. So just pick the characters you like, play the game, enjoy, have fun, and just relax. If you like this type of discussion and want to see more, don't be afraid to subscribe. I'm thinking about doing guides as well, so you might see that in the future. Hope you all have a good day and see you all soon.